Hush, hush, he'll think that you're asleep. If you make a lovely snore away, he'll softly creep. Sing this tune, you children one and all. Bogeyman will run away, he'll think it's Henry Hall. When the shadows of the evening creep across the sky, and your mommy comes upstairs to sing a lullaby, tell her that the bogeyman no longer frightens you. Uncle Henry's very kindly told you what to do. Hush, 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 here comes the bogeyman. Don't let him come too close to you, he'll catch you if he can. Just pretend your teddy bear's a dog, then shout out, fetch him, like a frog. Hey, pretend that you're a cat. He'll think you made scratch and that will make him fall down flat. Just pretend he isn't really there. You will find that bogeyman will finish in thin air. Here's one way to catch him without fail. Just keep a little salt with you and put it on his tail.
Well, I do. I have, no, I mean,
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Julia Genoveva. I am the Artistic Director of Genoveva Productions. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Tonight, we have something very special in store for you, a reading of the play Trifles by Susan Glaspell. So this is our first time working with this playwright, and I wrote on the chat a little background on the play and the playwright and also the cast of characters. So it's truly an honor to be doing this wonderful play by Susan Glaspell. She was really a woman ahead of her time. She was a director, a writer, a journalist, a playwright. So it's truly an honor to be doing it in the year 2021. So working on this play has been amazing. We all had such a great experience. We've discovered so many things. It is a mystery story, but there's so much more as you dive into who these characters are and why they're here. So it's very, very special to us. So without further ado, please sit back and enjoy this reading of Trifles by Susan Glaspell. After the reading, we will have a very brief Q&A. I would like to know what everyone thinks. And then we will raise a glass with any beverage of your choice to 2021. We made it through this year. Woohoo! So that's it. See you in the Q&A. Enjoy.
My name is George Henderson. I'm the county attorney. Farmer Wright has died, and I'd like to know how and why.
My name is Henry Peters. I'm the sheriff of the county. Never seen a situation like this in all my days.
I'm Lewis Hale. Me and my friend Harry found the body. What we don't understand is why his wife didn't call the police before we got there.
I'm Mrs. Peters. I'm married to the sheriff. She is such a quiet little thing, sitting there on the cot like that. Makes you think.
I'm Mrs. Hale. I wish I had come over here once in a while. That was a crime. Who's going to punish that?
Trifles by Susan Glaspell. Scene. The kitchen is the now abandoned farmhouse of John Wright. A gloomy kitchen, and left without having been put in order. Unwashed pans under the sink, a loaf of bread outside the bread box, a dish towel on the table, other signs of incompleted work. At the rear, the outer door opens and the sheriff comes in, followed by the county attorney and Hale. All much bundled up, go at once to the stove. They are followed by the two women, the sheriff's wife first, then Mrs. Hale. The women have come in slowly and stand close together near the door.
Oh boy, this feels good. Hey, ladies, come on over here next to the stove. Feels good.
I'm not cold.
Now, Mr. Hale, before we start move things about, you explained to Mr. Henson just what you saw when you came here yesterday morning.
Oh yeah, and by the way, has anything been moved? Are things just as you left them yesterday?
Yeah, just about the same. You know, when it dropped below zero last night, I thought I'd better send Frank out this morning to make a fire for us. No use getting pneumonia on a big case on. But I told him not to touch anything except the stove. And you know Frank.
Right. Well, somebody should have been left here yesterday.
Oh, yesterday. Yeah. When I had to send Frank go to Morris Center for that man who went crazy, I want you to know I had my hands full yesterday. I knew you could get back from Omaha by today. And as long as I went over everything here myself.
All right. Well, Mr. Heldon, tell us just what happened when you came here yesterday morning.
Well, Harry and I had started the town with a load of potatoes. And we came along the road from my place. As I got here, I said, I'm going to see if I can get John Wright to go in with me on a party telephone. I spoke to Wright before about it once before, and he put me off saying folks talk too much anyway, and only asked for some peace and quiet. I guess you know about how much he talked himself, but I thought maybe if I went to the house and talked about it before his wife, though I said to Harry that I don't know as what his wife wanted made much difference to John.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can talk about that later, Mr. Hill. I do want to talk about that, but tell us now just what happened when you got to the house.
I didn't hear or see anything. I knocked at the door and still it was all quiet inside. I knew they must be up. It was past 8 o'clock. So I knocked again and I thought I heard somebody say, come in. I wasn't sure. I'm not sure yet, but I opened the door, this door.
Right.
And there in that rocker sat Miss Wright.
And what was she doing?
She was rocking back and forth. She had her apron in her hand and was kind of pleating it.
Right. And how did she look?
She looked queer.
Queer? How do you mean queer?
Well, as if she didn't know what she was going to do next and kind of done up.
Right. And how did she seem to feel about you coming on over?
Well, I don't think she minded one way or the other. She didn't pay much attention. I said, "How do, Miss Wright? It's cold, ain't it?" And she said, "Is it?" And went on kind of pleading at her apron. Well, I was surprised. She didn't ask me to come up to the stove or sit down, but just sat there, not even looking at me. So I says, "I want to see John." And then she laughed. I guess you could call it a laugh. I thought of Harry and the team outside. So I said, a little sharp, I said, "Can I see John?" "No," she says, kind of dull like. "When he home?" says I. "Yes," says she. "He's home." "Then why can't I see him?" I asked her out of patience. 'cause he's dead, says she. Dead, says I. She just nodded her head, not getting a bit excited, but rocking back and forth. Why, where is he, says I, not knowing what to say. She just pointed up the stairs like that. I got up with the idea of going up there. I walked from there to here, and then I says, why he died of? He died of a rope around his neck, says she, and just went on pleating at her apron. Well, I went out and called Harry. I thought I might need help. We went upstairs, and there he was, lying.
Okay, you know, I think I'd rather have you get into all that once we get upstairs. Then you can point everything out to us. So for now, just go on with the rest of your story.
Well, my first thought was to get that rope off. It looked, but Harry went up to him and he said, no, he's dead, all right, and we better not touch nothing. So we went back downstairs, and she was still sitting that same way. Has anybody been notified? I asked. No, says she, unconcerned. Who did this, Miss Wright? Says Harry. He said it businesslike. And she stopped pleating her apron. I don't know, she says. You don't know, says Harry. Nope, says she. But weren't you sleeping in bed with him, says Harry. Yes, says she. But I was on the inside. Somebody slipped a rope around his neck and strangled him, and you didn't wake up, says Harry. I didn't wake up, she said after him. We must have looked as if we didn't see how that could be, for after a minute she said, I sleep sound. Harry was going to ask her more questions, but I said maybe we ought to let her tell her story first to the coroner or the sheriff. So Harry went fast as he could to Rivers Place, where there's a telephone.
And what did Mrs. Wright do? What did she do when she knew that you had gone for the coroner?
Well, she moved from that chair to this one over here. Just sat there with her hands held together and looking down. I got a feeling that I ought to make some conversation. So I said I had come in to see if John wanted to put in a telephone. And at that, she started to laugh. And then she stopped and looked at me, scared. I don't know, maybe it wasn't scared. I wouldn't like to say it was. Soon Gary got back. Then Dr. Lloyd came and you, Mr. Peters, so I guess that's all I know that you don't.
All right. Okay, then. Well, I guess we'll head on upstairs first, take a look around there, then we'll head out to the barn and check all that out. Now, Sheriff, you're convinced that there was nothing important here? Nothing that could point to any motive?
Nothing but kitchen things.
The county attorney, after again looking around the kitchen, opens the door of a cupboard closet. He gets up on a chair and looks on a shelf.
Well, well, here's a nice mess.
Oh, her fruit. It did freeze. She worried about that when it turned so cold. She said the fire'd go out and her jars would break.
Well, can you beat the woman? Held for murder and worrying about her preserves.
Well, I guess before we're through here, she may have something more to worry about than just her preserves.
Well, women are used to worry over trifles.
And yet, for all their worries, what would we do without the ladies? Isn't that right?
He goes to the sink, takes a dipper full of water from the pail and pouring it into a basin, washes his hands, starts to wipe them on the roller towel, turns it for a cleaner place.
Good goodness, dirty towels. Not much of a housekeeper, would you say, ladies?
There's a great deal of work to be done on a farm.
Oh, to be sure, to be sure. And yet, I know there are some Dixon County farmhouses where they do not have such roller towels.
Those towels get dirty awful quick. Men's hands aren't always as clean as they might be.
Ah, loyal to your sex, I see. But you and Mrs. Wright were neighbors. I suppose you were friends too?
Now, I've not seen much of her of late years. I've not been in this house. It's more than a year.
And why was that? You didn't like her?
I liked her all well enough. Farmers' wives have their hands full, Mr. Henderson. And then this, it's not a very
Yes.
cheerful place.
Yeah.
Not a very cheerful place.
No, it's not. It's not very cheerful at all. I shouldn't say she had the homemaking instinct.
Well, I don't know as Wright had it either.
What do you mean by that? They didn't get along very well?
No, I don't mean anything. But I don't think a place would be any more cheerful for John Wright being in it.
All right. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit more about that later. I want to get the lay of things now first. All right, let's go upstairs.
He goes to the left, where 3 steps lead to a stair door.
Well, I suppose anything Mrs. Peter does be all right. She was to take in some clothes for her, you know, and a few things. We left in such a hurry yesterday.
Yeah, yes, all right. But I would like to see what you take, Mrs. Peters, and keep an eye out for anything that might be of use to us.
Yes, Mr. Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
The women listen to the men's steps on the stairs, then look about the kitchen.
I'd hate to have men coming into my kitchen, snooping around and criticizing.
She arranges the pans under sink, which the lawyer has shoved out of place.
Of course, it's no more than their duty.
Duty's all right, but I guess that deputy sheriff that came out to make the fire might have got a little of this on it. Wish I'd thought of that sooner. Seems mean to talk about her for not having things slicked up when she had to come away in such a hurry.
Mrs. Peters, who has gone to a small table in the left rear corner of the room and lifted one end of a towel that covers a pan.
Oh, she had her bread set.
She was going to put it in there. It's a shame about her fruit. I wonder if it's all gone. I think there's some here. That's all right, Mrs. Peters. Yes, here's the cherries too. I declare, I believe that's the only one. She'll feel awful bad after all the hard work she put in the hot weather. I remember the afternoon I put up my cherries last summer.
She puts the bottle on the big kitchen table, center of the room. With a sigh, is about to sit down in the rocking chair. Before she is seated, realizes what chair it is. With a slow look at it, steps back. The chair which she has touched rocks back and forth.
Well, I must get these things from the front room closet.
She goes to the door at the right, but after looking into the other room, steps back.
You coming with me, Mrs. Hale? You could help me carry them.
They go in the other room, reappear. Mrs. Peters carrying a dress and skirt, Mrs. Hale following with a pair of shoes.
Oh my, it's cold in there.
She puts the clothes on the big table and hurries to the stove.
Wright was close. I think that's maybe why she kept so much to herself. She didn't even belong to the ladies' aid. I suppose she felt she couldn't do her part. And then you don't enjoy things when you feel shabby. She used to wear pretty clothes and be lively when she was Minnie Foster, one of the town girls singing in the choir, but that was 30 years ago. Is that all you was to take in?
Oh, she said she wanted an apron. Funny thing to want, for there isn't much to get dirty in jail, goodness knows, but I suppose just to make her feel more natural. She said they was in the top drawer in this cupboard. Oh, yes, here. And then her little shawl that always hung behind the door.
Opens their door and looks.
Oh, yes, there it is.
Quickly shuts the door leading upstairs.
Mrs. Peters,
Yes, Mrs. Hale.
do you think she did it?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I don't think she did. Asking for an apron and her little shawl, worrying about her fruit.
Mrs. Peters starts to speak, glances up, where footsteps are heard in the room above, in a low voice.
Well, Mr. Peters says it looks bad for her. Mr. Henderson is awful sarcastic in his speech. He'll make fun of her, saying she didn't wake up.
Well, I guess John Wright didn't wake when they was slipping that rope around his neck.
No, it's strange. I mean, it must have been done awful crafty and still. They say it was such a funny way to kill a man, rigging it all up like that.
That's just what Mr. Hale said. There was a gun in the house. He says that's what he can't understand.
Mr. Henderson said coming out that what was needed for the case was a motive, something to show anger or sudden feeling.
I don't see any signs of anger around here.
She puts her hand on the dish towel which lies on the table, stands looking down at table, one half which is clean, the other half messy.
It's wiped to here.
Makes a move as if to finish work, then turns and looks at loaf of bread outside the bread box. Drops towel.
Wonder how they're finding things upstairs. I hope she had a little more red up there. You know, it seems kind of sneaking. Locking her up in town and then coming out here and trying to get her own house to turn against her.
But Mrs. Hale, the law is the law.
I suppose it is. Better loosen up your things, Mrs. Peters. You won't feel them when you go out.
Mrs. Peters takes off her fur tippet, goes to hang it on hook at back of room, stands looking at the under part of the small corner table.
Oh, she was piecing a quilt.
She brings a large sewing basket and they look at the bright pieces.
It's a log cabin pattern. Pretty, isn't it? I wonder if she was going to quilt it or just knot it.
Footsteps have been heard coming down the stairs. The sheriff enters, followed by Hale and the county attorney.
They wonder if she was gonna quilt it, just knot it.
Well, Frank's fire didn't do much for upstairs, did it? All right, well, let's go out to the barn and get that cleared up.
The men go outside.
I don't know if there's anything so strange, our taking up our time with little things while we're here waiting for them to get the evidence.
She sits down at the big table, smoothing out a block with decision.
I don't see as it's anything to laugh about.
Well, of course, they've got awful important things on their mind.
Pulls up a chair and joins Mrs. Hale at the table.
Mrs. Peters, look at this one. Here, this is the one she was working on. And look at the sewing. All the rest of it has been so nice and even. And look at this, it's all over the place. Why, it looks as if she didn't even know what she was about.
After she has said this, they look at each other, then start to glance at the door. After an instant, Mrs. Hale has pulled at a knot and ripped the sewing.
What are you doing, Mrs. Hale?
Just pulling out a stitch or two that's not sewed very good. Bad sewing always gets me fidgety.
Well, I don't think we ought to touch things.
I'll just finish up this end. Mrs. Peters,
Yes, Mrs. Hale.
what do you suppose she was so nervous about?
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if she was nervous. I sometimes sew awful queer when I'm just tired.
Mrs. Hale starts to say something, looks at Mrs. Peters, then goes on sewing.
Well, I must get these things wrapped up. They may be through sooner than we think. I wonder where I can find a piece of paper and string.
In that cupboard, maybe.
Mrs. Peters looking in cupboard.
Why, here's a bird cage. Did she have a bird, Mrs. Hale?
I don't know whether she did or she didn't. I've not been here for so long. There was a man around last year selling canaries cheap, but I don't know if she took one. Maybe she did. She used to sing real pretty herself.
Seems funny to think of a bird here. But she must have had one, or why would she have a cage? I wonder what happened to it.
I suppose maybe the cat got it.
No, she didn't have a cat. She got that feeling some people have about cats, being afraid of them. My cat got in her room and she was real upset and asked me to take it out.
My sister Bessie was like that. Queer, ain't it?
Why, look at this door. It's broke. One hinge is pulled apart.
Looks as if someone must have been rough with it.
Why, yes.
She brings the cage forward and puts it on the table.
I wish if they were going to find any evidence, they'd be about it. I don't like this place.
But I'm awful glad you came with me, Mrs. Hale. It would be lonesome for me sitting here alone.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I tell you what I wish, Mrs. Peters. I wish I had come over here sometimes when she was here. I wish I had.
But of course, you were awful busy, Mrs. Hale. Your house and your children.
I could have come. I stayed away because it weren't cheerful, and that's why I ought to have come. I've never liked this place. Maybe because it's down in a hollow and you don't see the road. I don't know what it is, but it's a lonesome place and always was. I wish I'd come to see Minnie Foster sometimes. I can see now.
Well, you mustn't reproach yourself, Mrs. Hale. Somehow we just don't see how it is with other folks until something happens.
Not having children makes less work, but it makes a quiet house. And Wright out all day at work and no company when he did come in. Did you know John Wright, Mrs. Peters?
Oh, no, not to know him. I've seen him in town. They say he was a good man.
Yes, good. He didn't drink and kept his word as all as most, I guess, and paid his debts. But he was a hard man, Mrs. Peters. Just to pass the time of day with him, like a raw wind that gets to the bone. I should think she'd want a bird. But what do you suppose went with it?
I don't know, unless it got sick and died.
She reaches over and swings the broken door, swings it again. Both women watch it.
You weren't raised here, were you? You didn't know her?
No, not till they brought her in yesterday.
She, come to think of it, she was kind of like a bird herself. Real sweet and pretty, but kind of timid and fluttery. She did change. Tell you what, Mrs. Peters, why don't you take the quilt in with you? It might take up her mind.
Why, I think that's a real nice idea, Mrs. Hale. There couldn't possibly be any objection to it, could there? Now, just what would I take? I wonder if her patches are in here and her things.
They look in the sewing basket.
Here's some red. I expect this has got some sewing things in it. What a pretty box. Looks like somebody would give you that. Maybe her scissors are in here?
Opens box.
Or there's something wrapped up in this piece of silk.
Why? Oh, this isn't scissors.
Mrs. Peters, it's
the bird.
Mrs. Peters, look at it. Its neck. Look at its neck. It's all other side too.
Somebody wrung its neck.
Steps are heard outside. Mrs. Hale slips box under quilt pieces. Enter sheriff and county attorney. Mrs. Peter rises.
Okay, well, ladies, have you decided whether she was going to quilt it or not it?
We think she was going to knot it.
Oh, well, that's very interesting, I'm sure.
Seen the bird cage.
What's that? Has the bird flown away?
Mrs. Hale putting more quilt pieces over the box.
We think the cat got it.
Oh, is there a cat?
Well, not now. They're superstitious, you know. They leave.
Right. Well, no sign at all of anyone having come from the outside. It's their own rope. I don't know. Well, let's go over it again and talk about it piece by piece.
They start
It would
upstairs.
have to be someone who just knew.
She liked the bird. She was going to bury it in that pretty box.
When I was a girl, my kitten, it was a boy with a hatchet, and before my eyes, and before I could get there, if they hadn't held me back, I would have hurt him.
I wonder how it would seem never to have had any children around. No, Wright wouldn't like the bird thing that sang. She used to sing. He killed that too.
We don't know who killed the bird.
I knew John Wright.
It was an awful thing was done in the house this night. Mrs. Hale killing a man while he slept, slipping a rope around his neck that choked the life out of him.
His neck choked the life out of him.
Her hand goes out and rests on the birdcage.
We don't know who killed him. We don't know.
There had been years and years of nothing than a bird to sing to you. It would be awful. Still, after the bird was still.
I know what stillness is. When we homesteaded in Dakota and my first baby died, after he was 2 years old and me with no other than.
How soon do you suppose they'll be through looking for the evidence?
I know what stillness is. The law has got to punish the crime, Mrs. Hale.
I wish you'd seen Minnie Foster when she wore a white dress with blue ribbons and stood up there in the choir and sang. I wish I had come here once in a while. That was a crime. That was a crime. Who's going to punish that?
We mustn't take on.
I might have known she needed help. I know how things can be for women. I tell you, it's queer, Mrs. Peters. We live close together and we live far apart. We all go through the same things. It's all just a different kind of the same thing. If I was you, I wouldn't tell her her fruit was gone. Tell her it ain't. Tell her it's all right. Take this in to prove it to her. She may never know whether it was broke or not.
Mrs. Peters takes the bottle, looks about for something to wrap it in, takes petticoat from the clothes brought from the other room, very nervously begins winding this around the bottle.
My, it's a good thing the men couldn't hear us. Wouldn't they just laugh? Getting all stirred up over a little thing like a dead canary, as if that could have anything to do with well, wouldn't they just laugh?
The men are heard coming downstairs.
Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't.
No, Peters, it's all perfectly clear except the reason for doing it. But you know, juries, how they are when it comes to women. If there was some definite thing, something to show, something to make a story about what happened, it's just, a thing that would connect up with this strange way of doing it.
Enter Hale from outer door.
Well, got the team around. Pretty cold out there.
Yeah, I'm going to stay here for a while by myself. Sheriff, you can send Frank out for me, can't you? I want to go over everything. I'm just not satisfied that we can't do better.
You want to see what Mrs. Peters is going to take in?
The lawyer goes to the table, picks up the apron.
Oh, I guess they're not very dangerous things the ladies have picked out. Let me see here.
Moves a few things about, disturbing the quilt pieces which cover the box.
No, no, Mrs. Peters doesn't need supervising. No. And for that matter, sheriff's wife is married to the law, ain't she? Ever think of it that way, Mrs. Peters?
Not just that way.
Married to the law. Oh, I just want you to come over here a minute, George. We might want to take a look at these windows.
Windows.
We'll be right out, Mr. Hale.
Hale goes outside. The sheriff follows the county attorney into the other room. A moment. Mrs. Hale holds her. Then her own eyes point the way to where the box is concealed. Suddenly, Mrs. Peters throws back 12 pieces and tries to put the box in the bag she is wearing. It is too big. She opens box, starts to take bird out, cannot touch it, goes to pieces, stands there helpless. Sound of a knob turning in the other room. Mrs. Hale snatches the box and puts it in the pocket of her big coat. Enter County Attorney and Sheriff.
Well, Henry, at least we have found out that she was not going to quilt it. She's going to, what do you call it, ladies?
We call it not it, Mr. Henderson.
End of play. Hi, welcome. The audience can come back. Please give these talented, amazing, wonderful artists a round of applause. Woohoo! You guys, amazing, great job. Thank you so much for our audience to being here. We're gonna open up the floor to a Q&A. Hi, Cecilia. Stella, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for being here
Good.
tonight.
That was absolutely great. I enjoyed it
Thank
thoroughly.
you.
It was gripping. I wanted to know what was going to happen. Everybody did a great, great job.
Well, the women did great, didn't they?
The women, the men, no, everybody did great. The women did really great. Yeah.
They did. Love it.
Oh, I think you're muted, Cecilia.
You're muted.
Yeah,
You're muted, yeah.
I said, despite what they were saying about the women, they did a great job.
So I know some people in the audience are familiar with this place, some are not. So if you're hearing it for the first time,
Julia, you shut my video, so would you please turn it back on?
oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She's multitasking. She can do it.
Yeah, I will find you in a hot, quick second.
Okay, but
I think
I
it's
really don't want to interrupt the discussion.
Oh, I got you, Steph. Don't even worry. I got
Peggy,
you.
turn your
girlfriend.
picture on.
Okay, now I can do it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
ask to start video. Sorry, I did that for
Hi.
our audience during the show. So, okay, so do you think Mrs. Wright did it? That's my big question. Did she do it? What does everybody think?
Oh, no.
Of course.
I think she did it.
I think
She
so.
did it.
I think she did it.
Yeah.
I think she did it.
I don't.
Uh-huh, Stephanie.
I really would have. Where is Act 2?
This version is only this one act. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. There could be an act 2, but yeah.
I
this is
really
one.
wanted more. I was caught up with the characters, with the story, with the development of the relationships, and I want more.
Well, you know that that's the thing about a good story writer. Always leave the audience wanting.
Great.
Uh-huh.
A cliffhanger.
Oh, Julia could write a sequel with her eyes closed.
I would love to. I should look into that. Maybe I can. Yeah, I think perhaps I could do
Try
an
it.
adaptation. I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Or like a 2021 version of it. I don't know.
Like my thing is like what is not
Let's get closer to the mic.
oh yeah, what I'm in doubt about is if they're gonna prosecute her or find her guilty, or if hiding the evidence is gonna get her off. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
one
the
thing
bird is not
in
evidence.
the writing is I didn't understand why she was arrested at that point.
She's the only one. That was-
In our back country, you know, we arrest the first person we see.
Okay, you don't
Yeah.
wait
Very
for
good,
that.
man.
What is it, Hendrickson County? We put him in jail right away.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for the cast about the play or any feedback or anything?
It's just it's such a great last line. It's such a famous last line when she says, "That's not it, not it."
Yeah.
We call it not it. It's just wraps it up perfectly.
Yeah.
Because they know, and the men know nothing.
Yeah.
What else has she written, Julia? Can you give more of her background on other work?
She has written a couple of one-act plays. There's a full-length play of hers actually that I think I want to dive in at some point. It's called Bernice. It's similar to this setup, but it's a full-length play. And I think with Susan Glaspell, she kind of had a way of combining fiction and nonfiction. So things that were kind of like mysterious, but she would add like, because she was around before women were able to vote. So she kind of like intertwined these like her observations of how women were treated with like these mysteries. So there is one play of hers that it had a couple of runs. If I'm not mistaken, there was maybe like a off-Broadway run or something of Bernice. So, which is similar to this story, except the group of people, they're kind of more like affluent. So they're kind of like, you can say wealthy, and then there's a murder, something happens, and they kind of have to figure it out. So that is something I do want to dive in next for like one of the future Unhinged readings. So yeah, I actually didn't hear about her before. I was just kind of looking for plays, with the holidays. Like it was kind of hard to like read original plays. So I'm like, well, what if I do something, that it's like classic, that there's no royalty fee. So I was Googling, and I'm like, oh, who's this playwright? And the more I read about her, it was like really fascinating. I got like very excited about it. So yeah.
How did any actor can answer my question? How did you feel about your character when you first started to read? When you read the script, when you were first given the part.
Okay, this is a question for the cast.
Who was that directed
For the cast, of course.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I personally found Hale has a kind of focused part. He just describes that and leaves. But I kind of found it weird that he's married to such a smart woman, because he seems kind of simple. And he seems kind of like, whatever. I don't know who did it, and everything is there for him to see. But his wife is really smart, so she probably runs the house.
For sure. Mrs. Hale, yes.
I like Jean Capuano's comment about maybe she'll attack the jailer with her quilting supplies. Reminds me of the old Alfred Hitchcock, where Barbara Bel Geddes served the leg of lamb, the frozen that she killed her husband with. She cooked it and served it to the investigating officers.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's a famous short story.
It's Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan's there. Shane's there.
Oh.
There he is.
Oh, there's Shane. Oh my God.
Would anyone else in the cast like to say anything about their characters or how they felt when they first read the script? Any thoughts?
I just, as the sheriff, he's just has seen lots of crime, but like I said in the beginning, never really saw a crime where the wife was the one who killed the husband, and it was really an odd situation to him, but he was sure that she did it. There was no doubt in his mind that she did it.
Yeah.
I had done the play before and been Mrs. Hale, so I was aware of her, and I don't know whether Eva's still here or not, but Eva Visco played Mrs. Peters when I played Mrs. Hale. So I'd love to hear what she has to say if she's still here. But part of the research I did, Douglas County is in the Midwest, and it's either in Iowa, Indiana, they have them in all those places, and Michigan. And this put me in mind of The Runner Stumbles, which is another play that was written about the same time, and it was in the upper Michigan area. And they're very rural people. It doesn't mean they're stupid or anything. It just means that they live a much tougher life than the people in the cities did. It's funny about Mrs. Hale, you're right. That she's so smart.
Look, this Jack.
Usually, the
Sorry.
did defer to the men and just did what they were asked to do. That was what women did. then. So it was really interesting. The two women who both, I guess Mrs. Hale is more rural because her husband's a farmer, where the sheriff's wife would have been in town, and maybe they've been sheriffs in other towns and stuff. So there was a lot to think about the background and what they've observed at that point in their lives. Very different than today, that's for sure.
I guess for me, I think one of the messages is clear, and it kind of resonates now too, that, when you have an opportunity to show kindness to somebody, to reach out to somebody, to make a call, you should do it, because you don't know what's going to happen. And she regrets that she just was too busy living her own life, too busy being self-interested, as we all get in living our lives and going on. But if she felt a lot of guilt because she didn't care enough to come and visit because it made her uncomfortable. And how often do we do that kind of stuff where we just kind of, hey, not my thing, or yeah, I'll call, or yeah, I'll text. If instead of calling, we might text somebody because it's easier. So it's just something that struck me.
Or I'll call tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's one thing that struck me. I'm like, wow, back then people didn't keep in touch with each other. Like they didn't have internet, they didn't have like cell phones. And I'm like, wow, and that was a lot of things that I found like fascinating from the script. The play came out in the year 1916.
I was just going to ask that question.
Are in 2021, and I'm like, this is happening now. Like, this is so many things. I can count them with my fingers. Yeah, that that Mrs. Hale never checked in on her friend. Things with women too are still happening, when they're in environments that they're not getting treated fairly. There's a lot going on, and I'm like, this still is relevant. So yeah, that was one of the things that really kind of pulled me in. So any other comments or thoughts, questions?
No.
All right.
Maria, you really made it so relevant, so contemporary.
Ooh, Shane.
I couldn't hear her. I couldn't hear you. What did you say? I'm sorry.
I said you really made it very relevant and contemporary with your feelings of regret for not having visited her. Yes, we can visit on telephone, on Zoom, but a lot of times, I know I'm guilty of the same thing. Oh yeah, I'll call her tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, I think
tomorrow I get busier than I was today.
Yeah. And I want to give it up to this amazing cast, because we had to do this in Zoom, and we try to incorporate as much as possible. The play was filled with so many like stage directions, and I'm like, oh my God, I wish we could do this live, but they really did an amazing job with the wardrobe, with layers, and
Or my gloves.
Thank you, Gus.
I'm sitting here in my flannel shirt.
I kept the windows open. It's freezing, and this
yeah, he's a method actor.
Yeah. That frosty feeling.
Yeah, and just connecting with each other through Zoom, that's not easy. And seeing the bird cage and the sewing box, and I mean, for Bill and Bob and Gus, like entering and connecting to each other and seeing things in other rooms, but all we have is Zoom. So I really have to give it up to these amazing actors for using their imagination and making it look real, even though we have Zoom right now. And thank God that we do have Zoom right now. So
well, some of us overheard all the rehearsals too. So we know you guys put a lot of energy into this.
Yes. You have behind the scenes footage, Cecilia.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So
well, the only thing I'll say is, Julia, if you want to put this on live, I don't want to be prop master.
I'll keep that in mind, but I would.
No, I don't want
Who wants to handle a dead bird, right? I know.
Yeah.
I would
Julia, you gave very good descriptions, so that not only did the actors use their imagination, but as an audience member, I did too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would love to produce this play because, you know, I did a lot of research and I saw a lot of things on YouTube. I saw a lot of Zoom readings and like previous New York off-Broadway productions, and it just kind of like triggers so many ideas. And I'm like, I definitely need to do this when live theater comes back, like for sure. So yeah, stay tuned. All right,
Then
guys.
just one thing, in case
Yes.
anybody's wondering,
Who that
little
beautiful baby
there
is?
is my great grandnephew.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name is Jack.
Oh,
His
hey.
name is
Hi,
Jack.
Ashley. Hi, Jack. How old is Jack? How
She's
old
on.
is he?
He was born in like June.
September. He's
September.
4 months.
Oh my God, he's so cute. Did he like the show?
Well, he's still here.
This is
He
how you start.
didn't end the meeting. That's a good sign.
Like, where's SpongeBob in this thing?
Right?
Oh my God, you're beautiful, Jack. Thank you for being with us. Yay.
Good job, guys. It was.
And thanks, Ashley, for
Thank
the
you,
chance
Ashley.
I get to see him.
I know.
He's beautiful.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Stella, for being here. Thank you.
Yes,
appreciate
Stella, thank
everybody's-
you so much.
Thank you. I'm enjoying it. Are you kidding me?
Thank
She
you.
used to come to Manhattan with us when you go.
No.
I know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in person in like 2 years
That's
or
right,
something.
yeah.
Days. I miss those days.
Yeah, we all do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you for being here.
Hey, everybody.
Paul is a Genoveva Productions veteran.
Yeah, he's a. Take care. Bye, Ash.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Good night. Great job. Love you all. Please check cast. And see you soon. Next
Bye,
time will
Ashley.
be an evening with Julie and friends in
Good
February.
night, boys. Ryan,
Bye.
Jane.
Good job. Great
Thanks.
job. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you, Stephanie.
My pleasure.